Pastor Bruno BOAZ II of Congo. My visit to hell and heaven and my deliverance. I will continue my testimony where I ended. I said I was being pursued by men of the president. It was through a pastor that Jesus kept me alive, but I became unstable as I was a fugitive. Despite the fact that I was with the pastor who was dealing with me, I was still not fully converted. I still had magical instruments and mystical power. Then one day I had a significant dream. I dreamed of a man telling me that my time is up and my mission is finished on earth. He said to me, "We have served you enough. It is time for you to come to serve us." I asked the man talking to me, "Who are you?" He replied, "We are the ones who have been serving you and we have been fighting for you. We are here to tell you that we have served you enough. It is time for you to come and serve us in the afterlife." I replied to the man, "I am serving you here already." The man replied, "Still, you will have to come here in the spirit world and serve us." Then I woke up and I began to think about the dream and the message of this man. I was still under the supervision of the man of God, and a few days after that dream, the man of God who was doing follow-up on my situation came. He said to me, "You had a dream, right? In fact, the devil wants you to die and he wants your spirit to serve him in the spirit world. Make no mistake, you are facing death." The pastor said, "These demons disguising as so-called Chinese masters are claiming your soul. They want you in the afterlife so that you can serve them. You will have to make a decision to surrender to Christ completely, otherwise you will suffer consequences." And the pastor left, but I felt a force telling me to follow him. I followed him despite the fact that I was hiding like a fugitive, avoiding to be out in public and hiding from the presidential soldiers. Then I joined the pastor and we walked to church. When we arrived, the pastor said to me, "There is a reason why the devil wants to kill you." Then the pastor told me something that happened at my birth. It was a word of knowledge. He said, "Do you remember the Lord said to your mother when you were in her womb that you will be his servant?" I was stunned to hear this old story. I then knew that this minister was a real man of God. In fact, when my mother was pregnant, I was in her womb when a protege of T.L. Osborne declared to her that the baby in her womb will be God's servant. As I was touched by the pastor's revelation, I said, "Pastor, I don't want to die. What am I supposed to do so that I can avoid death?" Actually, I remembered when I signed the covenant with the Chinese master Yang, he said to me, "There will come a time after being served by the Chinese ancestors that they will ask you to serve them so that you can also fight for other martial artists who will enter in a covenant with them." But that made no sense to me, but later I came to understand that I will have to die and become a servant spirit or a demon serving these so-called Chinese masters, and I will have to die in order to fight or assist other martial artists in competition or real-life fight just like they are assisting me. After reflecting, I decided to abandon Chinese occultism. The pastor said, "You have to disclose everything and get rid of all the instruments that you got from Master Yang." Then I took the time to explain to the pastor how I signed the agreement with the Chinese master Yang and how I got initiated. And how he gave me a calabash that is kept by my mother, and how the Chinese ancient masters walk with me wherever I go and how they fight and protect me. The pastor asked me to bring that mystical calabash, but no one was supposed to touch it except my mother. And I brought the calabash of power to the church. I told the pastor not to touch it, otherwise the Chinese masters will show up here and they will brutalize and beat him. I said, "Only I and my mother are allowed to touch it." The pastor said to me, "I will touch it and nothing will happen to me in order to prove that Jesus Christ is the Almighty." Since my initiation, I was always walking around accompanied by Chinese ancient masters, just like the angels of God walk around Christians for protection. These demons disguising as Chinese masters were around me 24 hours, and in case of a fight, they were fighting for me. I mentioned earlier that one day I was struck in school by a thunder, and instead of the thunder hitting me, these demons protected me by taking the hit in my stead. In fact, when there was a thunderclap, 2 of the Chinese masters were burned on their backs in my stead. What happened is that I gave the pastor all the stuff I got from the Chinese master who initiated me, including the calabash, which was the seat of my power that no one could touch but the pastor. Demonstrated the power of Jesus by touching the calabash, and there was no manifestation or reaction. These demons, disguised as ancient Chinese masters, could do nothing against the man of God. So I got rid of all the Chinese magic and all the instruments. But the problem is that I thought I should keep the handkerchief of protection that I got from the siren, as I was already separated from the ancient masters who were protecting me. So I kept the siren handkerchief in my pocket for protection while I was already in the church for deliverance prayer. After 3 days of prayer in the church, then the deliverance prayer session started. The intercessors and the pastor began to pray for me. As they were praying, I felt a powerful wind blowing over me. As a result, I became unconscious. It was the ancient Chinese ancestors taking over my whole being. These forces took over my whole being as I became unconscious. Then I started to beat the intercessors and the pastor while I was completely unconscious and unaware of my actions. As the spirits of these ancient martial artists took over my body, I began to do an acrobatic demonstration of Chinese martial art. Then I began to beat the intercessors and the pastor. 3later the pastor said to me, I watched Chinese martial art movies in the past, but the acrobatic demonstration I saw you doing that day was impossible. As consequence, he and the intercessors fled. They ran out of the church and they locked me inside the church compound. But they continued their prayer for me outside the church compound while I continued to do martial art demonstrations inside, and I was breaking the church chairs and I was destroying things while being subconscious. While I was in that state of unconsciousness, I had the impression of being in a fight, but I was fighting empty space. My deliverance started like this because I was hiding something. I was supposed to get rid of the siren handkerchief. Then while in that state of unconsciousness, I heard a voice saying to me, get rid of the handkerchief that is in your pocket. This was a property of the devil or the siren that I had in my pocket during deliverance. Jesus said in John 14:30, the ruler of the world is coming, and he has nothing in me. When you are seeking deliverance, it is imperative to get rid of all the evil stuff and renounce it all. The moment I got rid of that handkerchief, I fell on the ground into complete unconsciousness. When I fell on the ground, the intercessors got in the church together with the pastor. They continued to pray for me. In that very moment, I went out of my body and I stood on the side of my body. Then an angel of the Lord showed up. He said to me, I am sent to take you to a place you like. The angel spoke like this because when the pastor was preaching, he warned me that if I die with my Chinese occultism, I will go to hell. I did reply to the pastor that I prefer to go to hell than to be beaten by my opponents and competitors. Then the angel transported me to hell. We landed on a massive site like a city bigger than our capital. It was separated by sections or quarters. Due to witchcraft, I was empowered to dominate women in my favor. So the first quarter we visited in hell was full of women. These women were raped by demons who look like humans. In fact, one woman was getting raped by a group of demons who were in a queue. I watched as these demons were arguing about who will be the first or the last, and they were harassing one another to be quick so that the others would not have to wait for long. But the genital organs of these robust demons were massively disproportionate, and these women, some of them were bleeding and they were exhausted, but these demons would not let them rest. I asked the angel, why are these demons tormenting these women? The angel told me, these women resorted to magic in order to seduce and dominate men who were wealthy in order to exploit them. The angel told me that the control and manipulation of wealthy men were made possible by servant demons, and they are the ones raping these women that they used to serve on earth. Let me tell you, when you see a woman having sex with a long line of men in a pornographic movie, it is just a picture of what I saw in hell. I saw demons in line raping one woman who is already exhausted and even bleeding. The devil is showing what will happen to people who are in sexual immorality in hell. Today, there are churches celebrating homosexual marriages. The Bible says, when you see the abomination of desolation in the holy place, be careful. Matt 24:15. When ye therefore shall see the abomination of desolation, spoken of by Daniel the prophet, stand in the holy place, whoso readeth, let him understand. Then the angel took me to another quarter. I saw female demons forcing men to sleep with them. These sirens were really huge, and when these men were tired even for 1 minute, the female demons were complaining, forcing the men to continue. I saw behind these men, demons holding whips, and every time these men were tired, the demons were whipping them and forcing them to continue. These men were used like animals. They were exhausted, but they were forced, and their backs were full of blood because of the whipping. They were whipped like slaves. These men on earth could control and dominate women through talismans or fetishes. They resorted to mystical powers in order to dominate and manipulate women through the collaboration of sirens. When they died, these sirens who were helping them to dominate women are the ones using them like animals for satisfaction, and demons were whipping these men all the time. 5th, and we left that quarter. We moved to an area where I saw martial artists. I saw people who were boxers, and they resorted to talismans and occultism to win matches. I saw a martial artist that I knew, a boxer. He was held by 2 demons, and one demon was boxing him. These demons were more muscular than American boxers or wrestlers. I noticed that the victim who was beaten, his face was already deformed and he was bleeding, but this demon continued to beat him, ignoring the condition of his victim. Then I asked the angel, why are they beating people who are already down and bleeding? The angel said, there is no mercy here. In some of my combat, the demons' so-called ancient Chinese masters were the ones fighting for me, and they were the ones taking the hit and the pain in my stead. This is what happens with boxers and wrestlers in martial arts combat. When a competitor has a talisman or a fetish, the demons who fight for him and take his pain are the ones who will be torturing him in the afterlife as payback. These martial artists were tortured by demons who fought for them during competitions and real fights. These demons had to endure their pains because they were their servants, but when they died, these very demons who were their servants were paying them the suffering they took for them. When we moved to the quarter of the wrestlers, it was even worse. Demons of wrestling were torturing former wrestlers without pity. It is like you are fighting with a competitor who is down and out, but you continue to inflict pain on him. I saw these wrestlers. Some had their legs and hands broken, but demons continued to beat them. I saw martial artists being subdued by demons of the martial arts, breaking their legs and hands. I was horrified and in terror. I never saw such terror and such suffering and violence before, and I began to tremble in terror. The angel said to me, this is the place you prefer to come. We still have places to visit, so calm down. Then we went to the quarter of musicians. I saw they were forced to play music with the injunction not to stop, otherwise they would be tortured. 6. I saw a musician playing guitar until the flesh of his fingers was torn and there was blood, and then it was the bones of his fingers playing the guitar, but he could not stop because the torture was worse. Each of these musicians had a demon watching over him to check whether they would stop playing. They all resorted to occultism on earth. The drummer who had talisman was stuck with his drum playing constantly. The pianist was also stuck playing the piano non-stop with a demon, waiting for an opportunity to whip him. The singer who resorted to occultism to sing well and be popular was singing incessantly non-stop, with a demon watching over him. There was a burning sun in this place. It had an effect on these musicians' skin as it was intense. If you resorted to occultism to be a good and popular pianist, you will be forced to play non-stop. And a demon will be placed by your side in case you are tired so that he can whip you. People were transpiring. There was no water and there was no rest. People's backs were bloody because of the whip and all these people were naked. Then we went to the quarter of karate. Over there I saw the Chinese master who initiated me in occultism. I also saw one of my students that I trained in martial arts. I also initiated him in occultism. But after his initiation, he died without even practicing occultism, but he was there. When I arrived in this quarter, I was greeted by many demons of martial arts. They were excited to see me coming there and they were eager to torture me. They said to me, "You initiated many in occultic martial arts, therefore you deserve a lot of torture." Then I saw these muscular martial arts demons in great numbers heading towards me to get me, but the angel took me and placed me behind him. As a result, I watched as they abandoned and gave up because of the angel. Then we left hell and we traveled to heaven. I saw people dressed in the purest white. They were in happiness. They were holding flowers in their hands and they were singing songs of worship. The landscape here was awesome. The weather here was holy beyond description. The place was well decorated. The wall of heaven was made of glass. As a result, I could see myself in these walls of glass, and when I compared myself with the people in heaven, I realized that I was dirty because my body or skin was earthly. They were shining light but I was flesh. And my clothes were torn. 7. I realized that I was different from everybody else. These people were singing a sweet song in an unknown language. They were all relaxed and joyful and they were singing in harmony. Then the angel took me out of the city to the threshold of heaven. Then we stood on the border between heaven and hell. The angel said, "You chose hell over heaven because you wanted to win competitions. So we are going back there to hell so that I will drop you there in hell as you made your choice." When I realized that the angel was about to take me back to hell where people were beaten up, I began to beg him. I was begging so much that I wanted to hold him, but he was stepping back. Then he said to me, "The key to heaven is now in the hand of God's servant. If you want to go to heaven, give all your occultic stuff to God's servant and separate completely. Then you will have access to heaven." Then I woke up from this experience. I was shaking. I said to the pastor that I saw terrifying things, but we have to go home to get the occultic tools and instruments that I was supposed to give him, then we will talk. The video ends here abruptly. Transcribed from Penuel Ngond YouTube channel. Videos. Bruno BOAZ Ministry is located in Cameroon. He is a missionary. His profile is in facebook.com/Bruno BOAZ pastor right bracket 8.